proud of this picture, so I'm going to wait for it to load.
What is it a picture of? It's like a donkey or something.
Yeah, it's from Midsummer Night's Dream. This is bottom, and this was right before she says, well, actually it's not, it's way before she says, I dreamt I loved an ass, and of an ass I was enamored of, or something like that. It's a great, it's called the waking up next to me line. All right, that's enough. It's taking too long. You get the point. I like that because I just like because it's Cagney, right? So he looks cool in a donkey mask, which is for all you actors out there, that's something. Okay. All right. Here we go. So this is a class on Shakespeare's major plays. It's in Harville 208. Office hours probably going to change because I'm negotiating with Professor White, so I don't have my own office because I don't have it like that. And but I'll let you know. As of right now, that'll be if you need to meet with me next Wednesday. Probably if any of you need to meet with me, it'll probably be sort of an emergency thing, so just email me. That's by appointment too. This is an introductory course to the dramatic works of the 16th and 17th. This is going to be full of typos, by the way. Dramatist, poet William Shakespeare. All right, you got a lot of reading. Really the big thing, you're not going to have papers. Really, you're going to have writing that you turn in before your midterm and your final. A lot of little quizzes, and it's just a lot of reading. So the thing about it is, well, we'll get there. Garber, Shakespeare After All, and those are the plays. I ordered some. It should be in the bookstore. There's not going to be enough, and you actually are going to have a quiz on Monday from the Garber, Shakespeare After All, and they don't have enough books at the bookstore. So what do we do? Well, the thing that you can do that's awesome is because you're students, I don't know if you know this, you can get Amazon Prime for free and you get free 2-day shipping. So if you ran home after this and ordered it, then you would have it in time because it would get here Saturday. Or what you can do is I got the library to scan the first chapter, and I'll be putting it up on D2L this evening if they get it done by this evening. And that'd probably be easier. Except for it's yeah, so anyway, there's that, and then there's also an article on D2L that you'll need to read. We have to get in the mode of reading right away because it's a reading class. The Signet editions are the ones that I'll be teaching from. They're not the best. If you're really into a play and you know that you're really going to like this play, you should get the Arden. It's better. But any scholarly edition is okay. I've got them Arden, Riverside, Norton, Penguin, Folgers. Don't use the Oxford edition for 1 Henry IV because it changes Falstaff's name to Oldcastle, which is a charming academic argument for why it happened, but it's dumb. They're wrong. And also because there's a lot of, you can get, obviously all these plays are before copyright, so you can get them for free on the internet. Don't recommend doing that. It's a kind of a scattershot. People just type it out and wouldn't do that. I mean, if you have to, you have to. I don't recommend it. And then there's going to be a lot of secondary readings on D2L. Everyone knows how to work D2L, right? So quizzes, this is going to be the having taught classes, this class and classes like it before, the number one problem is I'm really happy that most of you aren't English majors because English majors annoy me, except for those of you that are English majors, you're the exception. But one thing about not English majors is they don't really read. Not that English majors do, but it's just really hard to get people to come in and it's not that you don't read at all. It's just that you don't kind of read habitually in the way that I need you to come in and have meaningful discussions with you about the work. So I have to give you these stupid little daily quizzes, and they'll be every day, and they'll be based off. I give reading questions that you can, you're not required to, that you can go on. the reading with and answer the questions. And if you do that, you will be well prepared for the daily quizzes. It's not going to be hard stuff. If you read it with any attention and I'm pointing you in the right direction, it'll be a piece of cake. You're not going to have to like figure out quantum physics or anything. But it's just, you don't want to get behind is the thing. Because have you ever tried reading three Shakespeare plays in a night before a midterm? So they'll each consist of 10 to 20 questions. Actually, that's a bald-faced lie. I just made a quiz that only has 7 questions on it, but some of them have. Yeah, so it'll be based on the reading questions. Your 3 lowest quiz grades will be dropped. If you have absences and missed quizzes, those will count as zeros. We won't be doing the makeup quizzes, and you only get 2 absences in this class because it's a twice-a-week class. So that'll kind of be a wash. Try not to miss class. Class participation. I was really in a bad mood when I wrote this syllabus, so if it seems really aggressive and angry, it's not. Don't take it personally. Students that behave themselves, someone has children in this house over the holiday, have 2 or fewer absences and appear to be paying attention will receive 7 out of 10 possible points for participation. So when I'm going down, calculating the final grades, and I look at a name, and I'm like, Christina Chadwick, I have no idea who that is. And if I don't know who you are, that means you're going to get 7 because you weren't either a pain or you didn't participate. You didn't make yourself known by saying brilliant things or any kind of things in class. So you're going to get a 7. If say Jordan turns out to be answering her phone all the time and throwing shoes and putting whoopee cushions behind me on the board, it's going to be lower. And then say Kelsey is just she read it all already. This is just she's actually a time traveling postdoctorate from the 3rd dimension, and makes me look like an idiot. So then she'll get a 10. I understand that there's shy people that are like really super smart and like really engaged, but just don't like to talk in class for a variety of reasons. That's fine if you want more participation points. Come to my office hours and dazzle me, or don't dazzle me. Coming to office hours usually helps participation grades, because then I either know who you are or feel sorry for you or both. So the midterm, just before spring recess, of course, there'll be a short written essay that you'll turn in the day of the exam. So I'll give you the questions for it, a week beforehand if you want to do some. If you're a person that likes to write papers, you can talk to me and do your own. A lot of you actually are in theater, so if you wanted to look at aspects of, I'm not focusing on performance, but if you wanted to look at performance and do that for your writing, that's cool. Or anything, anybody. You don't have to be in theater. If you want to do something else, you can. And then so it'll be short answers, and we'll of course go over this again. And then the final exam, it's worth a little bit more. It's going to not be cumulative, The final exam is not cumulative, but it is worth more because then it'll be more involved, and I'll expect better answers because hopefully you'll be getting smarter as the class progresses. Questions? Okay. Class conduct. All right, so you get two absences, no questions asked. If you have more than 2 absences before the drop deadline, you will be dropped, and you will. It's too hard. It's too hard. Anytime you make an exception for people, they're always the ones that get you in trouble at the end of the semester. So I have to. I might. If you lose a kidney or something, or you've got to donate a kidney to your cat or something, and you've got a reasonably forged doctor's note. But anyway, so this is the thing, and pay attention because this is going to be a pain if you miss classes, because I really do this, unless you've got the kidney swap with your cat type thing, that you'll get 2 full percentage points off the final grade for each absence that you have more than 2. And so if you get 5, that knocks you down 10 whole points, and you don't want that. And I really do that. And it's a shame, and I cry and I bawl while I'm doing it. I go, I love this guy, but you have to rise above emotions, So No cell phones, tablets, laptops, or other electronic devices. I've tried this both ways. I've tried it every way, and I know a lot of you like to take notes on your iPads and your laptops and your. And I did have a student that just on the old keypads was actually taking notes on the text type thing. I was amazed, but the problem is there's just I don't know which one of you it'll be. But there's 3 of you that'll just be goofing off on Facebook the whole time, and it will distract other people, and then you get this whole aggressive thing. And so we just no electronic devices, please. So yeah, if I see you and like this happens a lot, people think they're slick. Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to ask you to leave, and it'll count as an absence. General conduct. I don't you know you're grown-ups. No food. Just water, no food or drinks. This hellhole building is infested with cockroaches, and I don't want to be part of the problem or part of the solution. I've been trying to. No.
You don't get 10 participation points then.
No, I usually don't do well in my own class. Try not to be late. If it becomes a problem, it becomes a problem. Code of academic integrity. Don't get caught cheating, you know the drill. No punching people unless you have their consent. Okay, I like this because this was fun to write. Many of Shakespeare's texts and interpretations thereof contain language, violence, and situations that some students may find offensive. The plays we are discussing contain frank sexual situations, bawdy jokes, prostitution, adultery, substance abuse, murder, extortion, robbery, attempted rape, an episode of possible bestiality, depictions of heterosexual and homosexual erotic acts, allusions to incest, depictions of animal cruelty, allusions to and attempts at infanticide, and the like. Students who have concerns must inform me before the second class meeting. It was fun to write. Okay, with the syllabus, the translation is that readings are required to be completed on the day that they will be discussed. So, for example, we see on Monday 1:14 that Garber's introduction and Fry, that's a typo, it's supposed to be an E. You're watching too much Futurama. The argument of comedy. So that means that you have to have those read by the day that it shows up in the syllabus. So that means that you have homework. Okay, that's cool. The reading schedule is subject to revision, substitution, omission, and probably omission is going to be the thing. Because I got really into the syllabus for some reason, and it'll be interesting to see if we can read all this stuff. If we do, we're going to be the most brilliant English 231 class in the history of mankind. Because there's Harvard grad courses that don't have this much reading. Just kidding. I mean, there probably is, but it's not that much reading. These are all pretty short. And so we've got the plays. We have about a little more than 2 weeks of play. And so we've got Midsummer Night's Dream we start off with. You kind of have to because there's a trajectory of Shakespeare, and you start off with the early comedies. And so his first plays were probably either The Comedy of Errors or Two Gentlemen of Verona. It depends on the scholar you ask. But you really have to understand the early plays to see how he plays with it as he goes along. But the problem with Comedy of Errors is it's almost unreadable. It's okay to watch performed. It's not really. And Two Gentlemen of Verona is just kind of. Actually, Two Gentlemen of Verona is fine. We could have done that. But I did Midsummer Night's Dream because it's supposed to be Shakespeare's major plays. And you probably heard of Midsummer Night's Dream. And you probably have not heard of Two Gentlemen of Verona. Have you heard of Two Gentlemen of Verona? Have you heard of Midsummer Night's Dream? Yeah. See? Henry IV Part 1 is a hoot. Macbeth is a even more hoot. So that if you're in theater, you know if you're doing Macbeth, you're not supposed to say Macbeth in anything because like the house burns down or something. Have you guys heard about that? Yeah. It's fooey. It's not true. Although you know what happened anyway. Othello. That's fun too. That's really that Desdemona is a pervert. Measure for Measure. Anybody read Measure for Measure? You like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. This got another pervert chick in it. It's pretty cool. And then Winter's Tale. Typically everybody does The Tempest, and I usually do The Tempest, but I don't really like The Tempest. And so we're doing Winter's Tale because we are. Questions regarding the syllabus?
Why don't you like The Tempest?
Well, the prose it's short, and I really like Shakespeare's short plays. To me, it's just sort of a interlude from the Winter's Tale, and I don't know. To me, it's more interesting to think about, and like it's really the first play I'll go see, because the plays I really like I don't like to see because they always interpret them wrong, and like I don't really think you can interpret The Tempest wrong. And then there's the mythology behind The Tempest is at the end Prospero throws his book off, and so everybody wants to say, oh, that's like Shakespeare giving up the pen, and it was the last play that he did collaboratively. But I have a different little mythology of Shakespeare. Okay, so I can turn this off. See, my phone's going on. So Daniel, leave. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. One thing that we're doing is, if you're interested in the suspense of the plays and you really like reading to not know what's happening and like turn the pages and really get caught up in the story, then you're going to have to read ahead, because how we're doing this, at least initially, I might change this as we go along depending on how we're doing, is that we'll be reading the introductions from Garber's lovely little Shakespeare, After All, and before you read the plays. So can anyone guess why maybe that's a good idea? Anyone?
So that we have kind of a guideline or an outline.
Yeah, so you kind of have some we didn't, Shakespeare's audience did not go to see Othello to find out if it was going to have a happy ending or a sad ending. Like they had the tragedy flag flying, so you knew that it would be death, not marriage, at the end. And then he also, I'm sure that almost all of his plays are borrowed. Just stories that everyone knew. So it wasn't about that. It wasn't, like what's going to happen next. That didn't really start happening until the late 17th, early 18th century. Vodka. But yeah, so it gives you some orientation, and a set of expectations, so you know what's going to happen. You kind of know what to look for. You have a general idea. Garber's book it's not her tour de force of critical acumen, where she's going to like bowl you over with her delightful insights and this and that. But it's just because she's just really friendly, and she's sort of lucid, and you could tell that she didn't work really hard on this book. But it's just like she knows the plays really well. I guess she's as close to a celebrity as you can get as a Shakespearean. But her dog book sucks. I was really disappointed. That's what happens, you start doing good work and you want to write a book about dogs, you don't know anything about dogs. The best thing to do is the best thing to do would be to watch the play before you do the reading. So you can fly to Stratford upon Avon and see it there, or you can just watch a movie or a BBC version of it before, and then read the introduction, and then read the play, and then read the other secondary stuff, and then you'll knock it out of the park. But nobody ever does that. Sometimes even if you just get I've been doing this more lately, you get the audio book of it and you listen to it while you're like riding your bike or something, and then that can do it too. But nobody does this, so we're gonna read the introductory material, then read the play, then read the sort of real supplementary secondary materials. And this usually works pretty well. We must always keep in mind that these plays were designed to be performed. We will not be focusing on performance in this class, although, and I've got mixed feelings about that, but anywho, I highly recommend Professor Kiefer's class if you're interested in studying the performance and performance history. He's really good at that. But if you're not well, you know, if having taken this class, even though you're not an English major, I can get you into Kiefer's class after. Anyway, I can get you in. But that does not mean, all right, all right, that's what I said, but then now the joke's out of context, so I'm going to pass over that. Close reading, but close reading, which is what we're going to be doing, is absolutely essential in order to really get Shakespeare and not do the performances that I don't think highly of. And so the best way to facilitate close reading that I know is just give you these reading questions to kind of slow you down and keep you from going like you're on Act 3 and you're trying to remember what happened in Act 2 and you have no idea. This won't happen because you're going to have to answer these annoying reading questions and sort of pay attention. Sorry. We'll probably watch some clips of some scenes, like I'm a huge fan of what's his name? Polanski? Is Macbeth? Is that the famous one? I always get Polanski and anyway. I also teach film, so I get confused. So we'll be watching some clips. Be advised that performances almost always cut or otherwise alter the text, not to mention explicitly interpret it, which is a good thing, of course, but that's not what you're going to be tested on. So, like, don't watch the Midsummer Night's Dream, Miracle Madness thing and expect that you're going to do well on the test, because they always mess it up. I mean, interpret it. All right, and I've got this section on how to get a B. It's very difficult to get an A in this class, and I'm one of those C as average people, but I'm getting bullied, so that's getting bumped up. But so there's 40 students in this class. Somewhere between 5 and 7 of you will get an A. Almost all of you will get B's and C's, and a few of you will do worse. Usually about the same as the A's. There's a lot of reading. And it takes a lot of time, and a different amount of time for everyone to be accustomed to early modern English. Shakespeare's English is not Middle English, it's not early English, it's modern English, but it's a different thing. And he uses a lot of words, and even people that were familiar with Shakespeare's English, have to look up a lot of words. So they say that Shakespeare uses about 30,000 different words in his plays, and estimates for how many words people know go from anywhere from 12,000 to 60,000 for what people average know. But you figure someone like Charles Dickens used about 7,000 words in all of his works, 7,000 different words, and you have to get to someone like James Joyce. Joyce uses about 30,000 words, I think a little bit more in his Ulysses. Has anyone ever tried to read Ulysses? Yeah, but Shakespeare is much easier than Ulysses, right? So Shakespeare uses a lot of words, but most of them are sort of intuitive. But you're gonna have to look up some stuff. So, but anyway, so it takes a lot of time. So you figure, these plays take between 2 and 4 hours to perform. So you probably about 6 to read, right? Hopefully 5. That's what I'm that's the math I'm going into it. And it will be wonderful for all of us if you learn to love Shakespeare from your encounter with him in this class. I think that to understand him is to love him, but my job, what they're paying me for, is to make sure that you read Shakespeare and that you can talk about him and that you are familiar with the plays coming out. So I'm not like a make learning fun guy. We're not going to go outside and do kumbaya chants and find out how we really feel when we watch Bottom get carried into Bottom. You feel sorry for Bottom because he gets raped. It's bad, sort of. Well, not really. If you are naturally all right, this is one of my passive aggressive paragraphs, I can tell. If you are a naturally quick reader that easily picks up on the gist of a work and can talk wittily about it in class and BS your way through a paper or two, you will probably encounter some difficulties in this class. Blah, blah, blah. I do not focus on dates, locations, and names of minor characters, but I do focus on specific concrete objects, events, and major details. You may at times suspect that I overemphasize what modern pedagogues like to call recall, but I would counter that a higher level synthesis of the gist-getters excel at consists of, or rather should consist of, concrete specifics. You remember in your writing papers, like in composition, and they always put be more concrete, specific, like focus or whatever. What did they write? I don't even remember. Concise, yeah. So yeah, all that stuff. And then we'll be talking about the gist, and the gist is cool, but the gist doesn't. I found as I get way older that I had all these brilliant ideas when I was your age, and I don't remember any of them. But the things that I can, the concrete things that I remember about the plays are the things you can build on, and because we all want to look cool in coffee shop conversations or whatever, right? And that's the things that helps you, it doesn't really help you if you're like, well, in Measure for Measure, Isabella is really, kind of screwed over. Nobody thinks you're smart, but if you can memorize the lines, well, as Isabella said, thrust me down and don't have sex with me, and then everybody thinks that you're crazy. Reading questions. So yeah, it is typical for college classes to demand 2 to 3 hours of homework each hour of class time. That's at least what they tell us. I don't think that most people really do that. I guess like OChem. So this class meets for 2.5 hours a week, technically 3 credit hours. So you should expect between 5 and 9 hours of reading a week. I very strongly recommend dividing the reading up. Ideally, you should read approximately 60 to 90 minutes every non-class day. If you do this, complete all the reading questions, prepare for and participate in class discussions, take notes and mark passages we focus on in class, and study your quizzes, reading questions, and major passages. That's all. It's all but impossible to get less than a B in this class. But if you don't, so it's just so the habit. It's the habit thing, You gotta, because you're not Shakespeareans, and so I've got to try and teach you to read Shakespeare. So if you're training for a marathon, is it better to slowly build up and run a little bit, 3 or 4 times a week, or is it better to just, run 24 miles a day before the marathon? Guess. Yeah, you want to stretch it out, and it's habit. Because I'm really into. Anybody really into neuroscience? Yeah, so it's we probably don't have free will, but we do have free will, and we can train ourselves into be your own monkey. I'm really into this. Training yourself. All right. Questions? Wow, I'm not even. We got it 4:15. 45. Oh, sweet. Good, because I've got all this more to go through. Okay, that's it for the do's and dads of the syllabus talk. You're ready to go. You look ready to go. All right. So what do you guys generally know about Shakespeare? Like what do you know about Shakespeare?
He and I share the same first name.
That's important. Will I am.
Yeah.
It's, and Will means a lot of things. He plays with that a lot. Yeah.
He was a contemporary of Christopher Marlowe, who wrote Hamlet.
That's true. And a little bit afterwards, Stephen Greenblatt thinks they were lovers. And all. Yeah. Marlowe's fun. He was a kind of after. I mean, Marlowe was died in a bar brawl, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was a spy, and some people think that Shakespeare was actually Marlowe because Marlowe faked his own death and Machiavellian diabolicalness and went underground and then used this stooge from Stratford-upon-Avon to be the name of the person that wrote the plays, but that's not true. So everybody knows about the author controversy, right? So we can get that over. All right. We're not going to talk a lot about that because it's boring. There's legitimate author questions about Shakespeare. It's difficult to determine exactly which are Shakespeare's lines in his collaborative works, such as Pericles, The Two Noble Kinsmen, and the unfortunate history is soap opera All for Love. They're not good. The Fletcher, the guys that were, and those were his most popular plays, incidentally. There's a couple of other plays that are apocryphal, and that some fringe scholars argue are at least partially Shakespeare's work, like Sir John Oldcastle and Arden of Faversham. Sounds like a Dungeons and Dragons land or something. And many scholars wish that their beloved bard did not have a hand in the pot-boiling Senecan trash tragedy Titus Andronicus, which was incidentally the last play that I cut from this list because for some reason undergraduates love Titus Andronicus. Anyone ever read Titus Andronicus? Do you love Titus Andronicus? Yeah, it's a phase, man. We all go through it. Everyone's like, I can't believe Shakespeare wrote this, but then you start paying, you're like, well, actually I can, because, like, do you want to say a few things that happen? What do you remember about Titus Andronicus the most?
Lots of blood.
Yeah. Like children getting chopped up and put into pies, fed to mothers, this sort of thing. Yeah. That's fun, but I didn't do it because it doesn't really go into a trajectory with the other plays, and I kind of want to. Anyway, and then my favorite Shakespeare, well, one of my favorite Shakespeare plays, Troilus and Cressida. A lot of people don't want to think that Shakespeare wrote it because it's very, very cynical. So is Hamlet, and nobody likes Hamlet. But within the field, we have a scientific, which, of course, for you scientists, certainty, which means rate of 95, regarding the authorship of the traditional Shakespearean canon. Counterclaims of authorship are the intellectual equivalent of claiming the Earth's age to be 6,000 years old and the dinosaur record to be false evidence planted by Satan to encourage non-belief. People can and certainly do hold such positions, but those people are not typically taken seriously as paleontologists. And they don't like it when you write a paper for them like that in your paleontology class. And then the reason that there's such a author controversy about Shakespeare, though, is we don't really know that much about him, like compared to a lot of the other major authors. We know he was baptized in 1564. We don't know when he was born exactly. He was married to Anne Hathaway in 1582. This is all going to be on the test. I'm just kidding. He lived in London and was part owner, actor, and playwright for the Lord Chamberlain's Men and the King's Men after James became their patron, and he died in 1616 at the age of probably 52, which is when, like most authors kind of get going. So he was mainly a businessman, and you got to keep this in mind. I mean, he wasn't like a high artist like we have in the 20th century. He didn't bleed for his work or anything. He was just cranking these things out, sometimes in a couple of weeks, because his company that he was an actor, not a very good actor in, needed plays to perform, and he was pretty good. Another note: almost every Shakespearean will warn you against trying to construct the real Shakespeare from his work, and every Shakespearean tries, with varying degrees of success of concealment, to construct the real Shakespeare from his work. For some, Shakespeare is a humane and understanding advocate of stability, monarchy, and Protestantism. For others, he is an Elizabethan ideologue that blindly perpetuates the imperialist hegemony of a colonial capitalist proto-empire. Still others find him to be a radical gay Catholic. It has been suggested in legitimate scholarly circles that he was a Jew, a Machiavellian villain, a proto-communist, a fascist, and that's to name only a few. What we can say with all certainty is that he was able to convincingly portray characters who were all of these and more. I have even heard that he was an alien. Do you want to know what he really was?
A person?
No.
Oh.
Well, yeah, a person, but I have a theory. You want to hear my theory?
Yeah.
All right, so like 400 years from now, there's a big solar flare that wipes out all of the all the electronic storage medium, and then we're just, what do? We haven't seen a book in forever because our Kindles are shot. We can't read anymore. And we just sort of like, and as we all know, like no one person knows how to make a MacBook. So so we all starve to death and whatever, except for a few people, and they find the ASU has that buried library, and then so these kind of nomads are wandering around, and they stumble upon the buried library at ASU, and they discover all these works in the library, and they get there, and there's like this second Renaissance, right? And so they're building this little rebirth of knowledge, and then they get a time travel. They get the successful time traveling thing. And this guy's like, well, I want to meet Shakespeare. So he goes back and memorized all his plays, and and just a guy that knew everything, that read the whole library. And goes back in time looking for Shakespeare, can't find him, but he's broke, and he needs to make a living, so he starts writing plays. I mean, you remember Shakespeare plays, and then like about the third one, he realizes, I'm Shakespeare. You like it? I'm gonna do a movie of it. Anyway, that's really what happened. So anyway, I said all of that about the real Shakespeare and that we don't really know anything about him, but I think that we do. Shakespeare was 18 years old when he married Anne Hathaway. Anne was 26 and 3 months pregnant at the time. Cougar. No, is that cougar age or is that still too young? How old do you have to be a cougar? 26? Yeah.
Life expectancy.
Yeah, life expectancy. But you know what I just learned? And this really, because my big defense of modernity was medical science. But life expectancy, was like the reason it was so low then was just because of infant mortality. Like people that made it through adolescence lived about as long as we do. So the whole thing's a bust. We don't need Lipitor. But anyway, yeah, I'm willing to go with a little bit cougarish. Anybody 18 in here? Like, would you be kind of creeped out at dating a 26-year-old, marrying a 26-year-old? I mean, I guess there's the like that whole MILF genre of things.
I don't know.
But
I have a lot of friends with parents that are like 12, 16 years apart. So that's
but I mean, there's a gender inequality here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Any evolutionary psychologists in here? Nuts. Yeah, they say that that's not, the evolutionary psychologists say that doesn't happen, and that doesn't happen very often, though, right? I mean, we know a lot of 26-year-old guys that marry 18-year-olds that they got pregnant because they were cruising the high school in their Camaros with their mullets. And then you got the 14-year-old pregnant, and the idea was that when she turned 18, and we've all been there. But anyway, so this is kind of an opposite thing. So you figure, so he's a country guy, right? So Shakespeare, he was a bright kid, but not and he wasn't like broke. He wasn't like a peasant or anything. His father was I think he was a spy, if I remember right. But he was sort of a pretty successful sort of merchant class person, and he got a decent public schooling. But he's really innocent. He's a country bumpkin. And then I just picture Anne Hathaway, 26-year-old, dark, devious, really engulfing, and just like, do you want to get married now?
Not yet.
Yeah, there's just it was atypical. It's not unheard of. But usually what you did was if you're in Shakespeare's position, he's got big dreams of being a whatever, an actor, a something or other, and he wants to go to the city. And so what you do is you go to the city and you make a career, and then when you're in your 30s, then you go and marry your 18-year-old girl. And but that's not so Shakespeare, in my opinion, got seduced. Scarily so, and then impregnated Anne Hathaway, and then had to marry her, of course, because that sort of thing was frowned on. You had to be really rich to pull. You had to either be really rich or really poor to pull off the bastard thing and not catch a lot of flack for it. And then so because I think that we're going to see this in the plays, you're going to see a lot of this figuring. And then they didn't live together much. Anybody seen Shakespeare in Love? Do we like it? Yeah, I don't. I actually have never seen it, but I don't think it was probably right. But anyway, was that the Shakespeare in Love, Anne Hathaway? What was the Shakespeare in Love, Anne Hathaway? Because he was married, right? Did they mention that?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the whole Shakespeare in Love was an affair.
Yeah.
He had children.
And she
Children.
inspires. What's that?
All right. No, we don't want to go into Shakespeare in Love. This is, but Yeah, so they spent most of their time apart. The most famous thing about it is that he, in his will, left her his second best bed, which has sparked all kinds of scholarly controversy. There's the Anne Hathaway defenders that was like, well, it was the kids would naturally, in hereditary law, get the best bed, and I think it was a slight. It wasn't everybody's will did not say I leave my wife my second best bed. There's a line. None of this stuff is provable. This is why we're doing it the first day of class, so you won't be tested on. But she was probably she was a hoe. She probably slept with his brother, and just but I like her. Yeah.
What did you think about that movie Anonymous?
I haven't seen it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've got it on iTunes, I think. But yeah, it's an author controversy thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was really into that when I was your age. But yeah. So anyway, Shakespeare's love life. Lots of speculation about it. I think it's the most interesting of the author controversies. Most of what people's ideas when they make arguments about Shakespeare's love life is from his sonnets. Anyone familiar with any of his sonnets?
Mm-hmm.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? He's writing about a dude in that poem, right? Mm-hmm. I'll tell you a little bit about Shakespeare's sonnets because this is actually because you'll see some things that it'll come up, especially in the secondary reading. Shakespeare's sonnets came late in the sonnet vogue. It was just sort of an afterthought. He published them in 1609, which is about between 20 and 30 years after it was okay to still publish sonnet cycles. It's sort of like trying to sell. Do you remember Newton's? No. What do you remember that's from like 10 years ago that's really lame? I'm in a different generation, so my thing's different. I probably think it's cool still. Like My Hump. Remember that song? It's like coming out with My Hump now and like expecting people to buy it. It's a really bad analogy. But anyway, it wasn't cool anymore. You didn't do that anymore. I was going to say hair metal, but hair metal's cool, right? Or is it not again? Do you know what hair metal is? Okay. Well. My pop culture references get worse every year. But anyway, the sonnet vogue was popularized by the Italians Dante and Petrarch in Italy, and then so love sonnets. Love sonnets, right? It's you've got a lady that's always has to be unreachable that you write all these sonnets to. So Petrarch, who is the most famous then, and Dante, who's the most famous now, fell in love with these little kids. And they kept writing sonnets to him through the years, and then so Petrarch's was Laura, and I think she was 9 when he first saw her, and fell in love with her, and spent his whole life in love with her. Never really talked to her. Said hi a couple of times. She married somebody else, had a bunch of kids, died. He keeps writing love sonnets to her. It's a big thing. And then so this got really popular as kind of a court poetry, and then and everybody kind of did their twist on it. But Shakespeare did it, and he made it a love triangle. Right, so there's the poet, and then there's the golden boy and the dark lady, and so the golden boy he's the most like the sonnet lady. He's pure and airy and aloof, and then the dark lady is not your average sonnet lady. She's what did I say about her here? Slightly older, promiscuous, VD infected, dark lady. She has probably gonorrhea, maybe something else, and she sleeps with both the poet figure and the blonde guy, and the poet's really concerned because he got syphilis from her and doesn't want the boy to get syphilis, but he's really in love with the boy, and they kind of have a side thing going, and the poet and she have a side thing going, but the real love allegedly is between the guy and the poet. And so it's crazy, and then it all ends with them sitting in mercury baths trying to get their VD cured. So this is so all this speculation about Shakespeare's love life comes out of this, right? Because this is fun, right? No. I mean, it's way better than, you know, like longing over a dead 9-year-old. But in my opinion, a more telling poem was an earlier poem that he did called Venus and Adonis. Anyone familiar with Shakespeare's Venus and Adonis? So anybody know the Venus and Adonis myth? Oh, please. Yes? Do you feel comfortable throwing it out there? No?
I don't know if I remember it
Okay.
completely accurately.
Yes, no? You feeling?
I can try.
All right. Should we let her try? Yeah, you got the okay.
I mean, it said Adonis was very beautiful, and then Venus fell in love with him, and he died.
Got gored in the crotch by a boar. Yeah. And then so in Ovid's version, it's really touching, and Venus weeps and transforms him into a flower, and then, you know, the little flowers, you know, like that you know, are reborn, and their love lasts forever in these perennial flowers. So Shakespeare does a version of this too, but he makes Venus this really clingy, desperate, just kind of all over the place, grabby, overbearing older woman. And Adonis, just this, like, you know, like really beautiful, frail, and like what's nothing to do with her, right? And she's like, come here, and she's all on top of him, and he's trying to squirm out, and the whole thing's just, he's like, well, will you let me go if I give you a kiss? And so he gives her a kiss, and lets her go, and goes running off, and it's just this really just overbearing, this like massive feminine presence that just swallows everything, right?
Is that supposed to be like Anne Hathaway?
This is my feeling, right? And then I mean, and this is Shakespeare for you, right? So he goes and gets, you know, trying to get away from her, goes and gets gored in the groin, dies, and but instead of the perennial, you know, like my love is forever, like he dies and one flower comes out, and Venus gets out, picks the only flower, and crushes it in her bosom, like crushing all of love forever.
Sad.
So that's to me, that's Shakespeare's love life. But he's got a different take on heroines. And just, you know, this actually turned into an interesting thing. He doesn't end up actually being just a raging gynophobe like so many of his contemporaries. He kind of does something with it, and he gets female protagonists that are atypically active for the age. You know, so he's got, let's see, should always take notes because you remember things better. So we'll see a sort of Venus-like in Midsummer Night's Dream. Helena, she stalks Demetrius. She's all into him and goes following him out in the woods and is like, kick me, you know, like, he's like, I'll rape you. And she's like, oh, do. And it's like, you know, so it's which I think is probably a good rape avoidance technique. Maybe they should, I probably don't want to mess with that stuff. But Rosalind and Viola. I have to say it that way because of the tongue stud. To put too fine a point on it. And As You Like It in Twelfth Light, they dress up as guys to get close to their lovers, so they're just proactive and interesting. Running out of time? No, we're not running out of time. 3:30 to 4:45. Okay. Yeah, so that's cool. So you see more interesting female heroines in Shakespeare than you do in his contemporaries, and I think part of that's from his just sort of switched, you know, atypical relationship with his wife, and because it's just way more interesting and way more things going on in love dynamics than you see than the sort of you know, older guy, younger girl sort of thing. So you get guys that act like girls in the relationship, and, you know, like Freudians love this because, you know, like you look at, well, Helena has a homosexual attachment with a heterosexual, you know, object, and what she really loves is Lysander, and Lysander really loves Demetrius, and Demetrius really loves Hippolyta, and Hippolyta is, you know, a kidnapping victim, and then Titania loves an ass, and like all of this stuff is it's a different See, that would have been cool if I would have remembered that line. He thought I was enamored of an ass. I think that's it. Is that it? He thought I dreamt I was enamored of an ass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone ever been enamored of an ass? So ass then was didn't mean ass's posterior or rump. Didn't become prevalent until the late 17th century. So ass then, which is weird because like so many of the ass jokes make perfect sense, but ass just meant stupid back then. But kind of, like I think that people like probably called their boyfriends asses then. I can't prove it. All right, another big controversy. So the three major controversies. This might show up on the test. The three major controversies are the authorship controversy, the Shakespeare's sexuality controversy, and then Shakespeare's religion controversy. And we're not going to spend much time on Shakespeare religion controversy because, man, I just don't care. So we know in early modern England that the Bible and Christian symbolism, and we are assured, permeated every aspect of culture. Catholicism was only partially tolerated during Shakespeare's working years. Do you know why? Anyone know this? Should we do a little bit of early modern contextualization history? We'll get more into this when we do the history play because it ties more in. But at the time, they were you know how England became Protestant, right? Henry VIII wanted to divorce, and the Pope wouldn't let him, so he started his own church. And then was Henry VIII the central character in Shakespeare's last play, All for Love? This is great, right? He turns it into a love story. Anyway, he loved her so much. Changed religion. So so the English Protestants were a little bit different than the Lutheran Protestants initially because they weren't really didn't really embody Lutheran and Calvinist thought per se, and it was high Anglican. It was still very, but it is you didn't want to be associated with the church. But the dissidents who were gaining momentum at the time got really excited about it and latched on. So then it became Protestantisms, and there's just a lot of because there's not just Protestant now, right? There's anyone any Protestant like even evangelical, is that one? Anglican. Puritan was then. Are there still Puritans? I don't know. Are Quakers Protestants? Anywho, so there's all these different Protestants, and then but the Catholics weren't really happy about this because some of the Catholic community were just like, hey, actually some of us actually believe this stuff. We can't just change religions like it was. Interestingly, it's easier to change a people's religion than it is their holidays. That's why we still have all the Roman holidays. Anywho. So there's back and forth, and then so the Protestants come into power and disenfranchise the Catholics, and then the Catholics, Bloody Mary, you've heard, come into power and burn all the Protestants. Protestants come into power and burn all the Catholics, and then so Elizabeth, who was the big important queen, and she was reigning in the first part of Shakespeare's career, was sort of tolerant. She did her big pro-Protestant act was during her coronation pageant. She got the Bible and held it to her bosom in this act that was showing that she was Protestant because the Protestants were big on reading the Bible and not going to priests or something. I don't really know. But anyway, so she was tolerant. So it was it wasn't like you weren't going to get burned for being Catholic, but you couldn't you couldn't go to school, and then it changed kind of year to year, but it was just sort of you were a persecuted minority as a Catholic. So most Catholics that worried about their professional career kind of kept it underground and just kind of stayed high Anglican and just wrote the Pope on their own time. So a lot of the best Shakespeareans throughout history have been Catholics, and Catholic schools were among the first to study Shakespeare seriously. And one thing that happens is if you're Catholic, you want Shakespeare to be Catholic, and you'll find evidence of it. And if you're Protestant, you want Shakespeare to be Protestant. And if you're atheist, you want Shakespeare to be atheist. And if you're a cynic, and you know, so everybody and that's really the origin of the religious controversy. He was baptized a Protestant. He wasn't a theologian, despite what everybody wants him to be. He wasn't into it. He was into the weird feelings that schoolboys felt for each other and the girls that they shared. That was his thing, right? So if you're into it, you can follow it, write a paper on it, or whatever. I just have to give a little bit of time for the Shakespeare's religion controversy. And I'm boring myself. I don't want to go through the rest of this. Try and pick up Garber's book. Get reading. If you need to see me, email me, and I'll see you before then. And you will be having a quiz on Monday on Garber's Introduction and Fry's Argument of Comedy.
Is it the start of class or towards the end of class?
The quiz?
Yeah.
Quiz. That's by appointment too. This is an introductory course to the dramatic works of the 16th and 17th. This is going to be full of typos, by the way. Dramatist, poet William Shakespeare. All right, you got a lot of reading. Really the big thing, you're not going to have papers. Really, you're going to have writing that you turn in before your midterm and your final. A lot of little quizzes, and it's just a lot of reading. So the thing about it is, well, we'll get there. Garber, Shakespeare After All, and those are the plays. I ordered some. It should be in the bookstore. There's not going to be enough, and you actually are going to have a quiz on Monday from the Garber, Shakespeare After All, and they don't have enough books at the bookstore. So what do we do? Well, the thing that you can do that's awesome is because you're students, I don't know if you know this, you can get Amazon Prime for free and you get free 2-day shipping. So if you ran home after this and ordered it, then you would have it in time because it would get here Saturday. Or what you can do is I got the library to scan the first chapter, and I'll be putting it up on D2L this evening if they get it done by this evening. And that'd probably be easier. Except for it's yeah. So anyway, there's that, and then there's also an article on D2L that you'll need to read. We have to get in the mode of reading right away because it's a reading class. The Signet editions are the ones that I'll be teaching. Have 2 or fewer absences and appear to be paying attention will receive 7 out of 10 possible points for participation. So when I'm going down calculating the final grades and I look at a name and I'm like, Christina Chadwick, I have no idea who that is. And if I don't know who you are, that means you're going to get 7 because you weren't either a pain or you didn't participate. You didn't make yourself known by saying brilliant things or any kind of things in class. So you're going to get a 7. If say Jordan turns out to be answering her phone all the time and throwing shoes and putting whoopee cushions behind me on the board, it's going to be lower. And then say Kelsey is just she read it all already. This is just she's actually a time traveling postdoctorate from the 3rd dimension, and makes me look like an idiot. So then she'll get a 10. I understand that there's shy people that are like really super smart and like really engaged, but just don't like to talk in class for a variety of reasons. That's fine. If you want more participation points, come to my office hours and dazzle me, or don't dazzle me. Coming to office hours usually helps participation grades, because then I either know who you are or feel sorry for you, or both. So the midterm, just before spring recess, of course. Don't be proud of this picture, so I'm going to wait for it to load.
What is it a picture of? It's like a donkey or something.
Yeah, it's from Midsummer Night's Dream. This is bottom, and this was right before she says, well, actually it's not, it's way before she says, I dreamt I loved an ass, of an ass I was enamored of, or something like that. It's great. It's called the Waking Up Next to Me line. All right, that's enough. It's taking too long. You get the point. I like that because it's Cagney, right? So he looks cool in a donkey mask, which is for all you actors out there, that's something. Okay. All right, here we go. So this is a class on Shakespeare's major plays. It's in Harville 208. Office hours probably going to change because I'm negotiating with Professor White, so I don't have my own office because I don't have it like that. And but I'll let you know. As of right now, that'll be if you need to meet with me next Wednesday. Probably if any of you need to meet with me, it'll probably be sort of an emergency thing. So just email me, come in, and have meaningful discussions with you about the work. So I have to give you these stupid little daily quizzes, and they'll be every day, and they'll be based off. I give reading questions that you can, you're not required to, that you can go along the reading with and answer the questions. And if you do that, you will be well prepared for the daily quizzes. It's not going to be hard stuff. If you read it with any attention and I'm pointing you in the right direction, it'll be a piece of cake. You're not going to have to like figure out quantum physics or anything. But it's just you don't want to get behind is the thing. Because have you ever tried reading three Shakespeare plays in a night before a midterm? Yeah. So they'll each consist of 10 to 20 questions. Actually, that's a bald-faced lie. I just made a quiz that only has 7 questions on it, but some of them have. Yeah, so it'll be based on the reading questions. Your 3 lowest quiz grades will be dropped. If you have absences and missed quizzes, you know those will count as zeros. We won't be doing the makeup quizzes, and you only get 2 absences in this class because it's a twice-a-week class. So that'll kind of be a wash. Try not to miss class. Class participation. I was really in a bad mood when I wrote this syllabus, so if it seems really aggressive and angry, it's not. Don't take it personally. Students that behave themselves. Someone has children in this house over the holiday. From, they're not the best. If you're really into a play and you know that you're really going to like this play, you should get the Arden. It's better. But any scholarly edition is okay. I've got them Arden, Riverside, Norton, Penguin, Folgers. Don't use the Oxford edition for 1 Henry IV because it changes Falstaff's name to Oldcastle, which is a charming academic argument for why it happened, but it's dumb. They're wrong. And also because there's a lot of, you can get, obviously all these plays were before copyright, so you can get them for free on the internet. Don't recommend doing that. It's a kind of a scattershot. People just type it out and wouldn't do that. I mean, if you have to, you have to. I don't recommend it. And then there's going to be a lot of secondary readings on D2L. Everyone knows how to work D2L, right? So quizzes, this is going to be the having taught classes, this class and classes like it before, the number one problem is I'm really happy that most of you aren't English majors because English majors annoy me, except for those of you that are English majors, you're the exception. But one thing about not English majors is they don't really read. Not that English majors do, but it's just really hard to get people to come in and it's not that you don't read at all. It's just that you don't kind of read habitually in the way that I need you to